Good evening. My name is Mayor Liggett, Chair of this council workshop, and tonight's workshop is regarding orientation to the 2020-2023 strategic plan and is expected to be approximately an hour long. As the meeting is a council workshop, we will not receive public delegations, and council will only pass motions to receive information, and if required, council may provide direction to staff related to the topic before us. I would like to provide everyone with a safety notice. In the event of an emergency, please evacuate council chambers using the nearest exit staircase. If you require assistance, please see our clerk staff and they will provide you with assistance to exit the facility. And once you have evacuated the building, please gather outside of City Hall in the Farmers Market parking lot and await further instructions. Now it is my pleasure to once again introduce council, Councillor Reid, Councillor Kimpson, Councillor Devine, Councillor Earnshaw, Councillor Roberts, Councillor Hamilton, Councillor Cooper, and Councillor Ameta. And a special thank you to our clerks and our technology services staff who are assisting with the meeting's logistics. We embrace our shared responsibility with the Indigenous peoples to take care of this earth and its creatures. We can only do so by walking the path as partners stewarding this land, as we have been given the duty together to live in balance and harmony with all living things. We acknowledge and respect the Indigenous peoples who came before us and who we live amongst. By honoring this truth of past and present, may we come to true reconciliation through listening, reflecting, and learning. A reminder to members of council that the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act requires members of council to declare any direct or indirect pecuniary interest in relation to a matter under consideration. Does anybody have any pecuniary interest to declare? None. Okay, so let us get started tonight. We are joined by Cheryl Zandleiter, Deputy City Manager of Corporate Enterprise, and Jenna Brown Jowett, Director of Corporate Strategy. Welcome to both of you.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Liggett. And thank you to Council and Mayor Liggett for your time and attention this evening. We're very excited to be before you today to talk about the city strategic plan and provide an overview of what the plan says, its components, and where we're going to go from here. So before we get into the review, I just did want to let council know that this workshop and orientation is not only to provide that overview, but it's part of our project plan to develop the next iteration of the strategic plan, because the term of this one is 2020 to 2023. So it's time to start having those conversations about what the next iteration will look like. After the workshop, we'll be following up with a staff report in the next quarter to council with a recommendation on how we can proceed to undertake the development of that next plan. So we're very poised to begin the development of that with council, and we'll be looking forward to having many discussions with you in the coming months about where we can take things. So with that introduction, I'd like to turn it over to our Director of Corporate Strategy, Jenna Brown Jowett. She'll be providing the presentation and over for you today. Thank you.
Thanks, Cheryl, and good evening, everyone. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so tonight our objectives are to broaden your understanding of our current strategic plan and to provide you with an opportunity to ask us any questions that you have. Next slide, please. Okay, and if we can just go to the next slide. Thank you. So in terms of strategic planning, we wanted to start by talking a little bit about strategic planning, why it's important, and some of the value that it brings to the city. So strategic planning is the process of setting goals and creating a blueprint for our organization's future. So we want to identify where we want to go as an organization for our citizens, and then create that blueprint or that plan to get us to that objective. So strategic planning is important. It reflects the voices of the people who live, work, and play in Cambridge. It helps to direct tax dollars to our community priorities and what the community is telling us is important. It connects the community's vision and goals with the corporate mission, values, and actions. and it guides our decision-making and allocation of resources. So we want to make sure that we have our resources and we're spending the time on the things that our community are telling us are important. It also allows the community to measure and understand the progress that we're making towards achieving those goals and objectives. Next slide, please. Okay, so in terms of our current strategic plan, we want to provide you just an overview of where things are at. So this is just a snapshot. So council did approve the current strategic plan in 2021. This plan provides the foundation for decision-making, priority setting, and ongoing performance management in order to deliver high-quality public service. As part of this plan, we did pretty extensive engagement with our community. At the time, we received almost 2,100 responses, and 1,500 of these were directly from our community members. And these sessions were done mostly virtually since we were in the midst of the global pandemic at the time. And they were done through methods of surveys, focus groups, workshops, and one-on-one sessions. The strategic planning process is done every 4 years. This is the first time that we've realigned our timelines to ensure that our plan is updated with the term of council. And so, as Cheryl mentioned earlier, this is to make sure that you have the opportunity to create a plan for your term of council and identify the goals and objectives that you want to achieve during that time. It also is in line with our regional partners. Next slide, please. So we want to give you an overview of, at a high level, what some of the key components in our plan mean. And so this slide is just meant to demonstrate that and have us all speaking the same language, using the same definitions. So when we look at our strategic plan, overarching, we have our public values, and those are sustainability, leadership, collaboration, transparency, and engagement. And those are sort of that umbrella that goes over the entirety of our plan. Our mission is why we exist. Our vision is where we want to go. So that's that North Star of identifying really this is what we want to achieve. Our goals are what we want to achieve, and our objectives are how we're going to get there. So those are those more tangible pieces. When we talk about strategic actions, those are those measurable steps that will get us there. And then out of that, every year during our business planning process, we develop projects and initiatives that help us to achieve those goals and objectives. So those are the boots on the ground projects that deliver our strategy for the community. Next slide, please. Okay, so we're going to go into each component and share a little bit more detail about them for you. So the first one is that public value. The city is committed to delivering public value, which means that we will consider the big picture impact of our actions and continue to communicate how we are delivering this value through the work that we do every day. The principles outlined below are the core to how we deliver service excellence and promote pride of place in Cambridge. So there are 5 distinct components that are part of those public value promise. The first is sustainability, and this is making responsible choices regarding both fiscal and environmental sustainability in our decisions. Leadership is working together towards that common goal. Collaboration is working with others on our mutual goals, so partners and others within the region. Transparency is sharing progress and showing how the input that we receive from our community is used. And engagement is ensuring that information is shared and gathered in many ways and that it's inclusive for our community to provide us with that input and feedback. Next slide, please. So the next part that we'll talk about is our mission, vision, values. And these statements serve as the foundation for our organization's strategic plan. They convey the purpose, direction, and underlying values of our organization. So when we look at our vision is a place for people to prosper, alive with opportunity. And so again, the vision, if you remember that pyramid slide, is where we want to go. This is our North Star and what we hope to achieve at a high level. The mission is why we exist. You may have heard that phrase, raison d'etre, or reason for being. The mission is why we get out of bed in the morning, why we come to work and we do what we do. Our mission is working together, committed to our values, serving our community. And finally, our values are a set of core beliefs. They act as guiding principles that provide the city with purpose and direction and set the tone for our interactions with community members, fellow team members, and other stakeholders. Our values are integrity, respect, inclusiveness, and service. Next slide, please. Continuing on with talking about some of those core components, we're going to talk about those goals and objectives. So goals and objectives provide the framework for all the related actions and initiatives that are included in the corporate business plan. People, in this case, is our goal. So again, what we want to achieve. And our first one is to foster a community with heart where everyone belongs and is cared for. Our objectives are shown in yellow: well-being, vibrant neighborhoods, belonging, and inclusion. Next slide, please. Our second goal is place. Embrace and celebrate our city's unique character while enhancing the spaces where people connect. And under place, we have 3 objectives: placemaking, planning for growth, and green spaces. Next slide, please. And our third and final goal is prosperity. Build a vibrant and resilient city where current and future generations will live well. And the objectives in this case are strong cores, economic inclusion and support, getting around, and resiliency. Next slide, please. So now we're going to talk about our strategic actions, and we're going to spend a little bit more time going into these at a deeper level. So strategic actions are a little bit more tangible. And again, they're those things that we'll take on that are more measurable to help us achieve our broader strategy. The City of Cambridge has 13 strategic actions, 6 strategic actions the city takes the lead on, and there are 7 that we collaborate on. When the plan was built, we felt it was important to distinguish between the 2. As a lower-tier municipality, the City of Cambridge leads service delivery in some areas and collaborates closely with our municipal partners and agencies in others. Our full strategic plan document, which hopefully you have in front of you, provides more information about the strategic actions, high-level information on how we'll progress each action and why they're important. In terms of the 6 strategic actions that we lead, I want to tell you a little bit more about what's involved in each one. So the first one is create and activate spaces that offer things for people to do. So this is really about increasing satisfaction, participation, and enjoyment of programs, events, and facilities in Cambridge. An example is our large investments in recreation. So Fountain Street Soccer Complex, the new rec center, and the Preston Odd expansion. That's just a highlight of some of the bigger ones. The next is providing age-friendly services that are accessible to all. So this is about enabling all residents to participate in civic life and increase service area satisfaction and participation rates. An example of this is the development of our older adult strategy and our World Health WHO age-friendly designation. So the next is establishing our core areas as attractive destinations to increase the feelings of safety and enjoyment of core areas for residents, businesses, and visitors to leverage the economic potential of these unique assets. An example of this action is our core area placemaking collaborative. The next is enhancing equity and inclusion efforts. This is about delivering services that support newcomers and equity-seeking groups. It's important to increase inclusivity, reduce the amount of discrimination that people are experiencing in our community. An example of this is our diversity action plan. The next is lay the foundation for future community building. This action will focus on the creation of a growth management strategy that includes a vision for growth and considers future impacts of core services and planning for our future infrastructure needs, things like the LRT. And the final is enhance opportunities to enjoy built and natural heritage. This action focuses on making rivers and parks more usable and accessible, addressing ongoing resources and maintenance requirements, increasing community participation in the ongoing care of parks, natural spaces, and environmental areas. This is important so that both residents and tourists can fully enjoy what our beautiful city has to offer. Next slide, please. So as mentioned on the last slide, there are services provided to our community where the city takes a collaborative partnership role. We have 7 strategic actions that fall into this category, and we're going to talk a little bit more about them to give you a better understanding of what they include. Enabling small business to succeed. This action focuses on supporting small local businesses and working to strengthen the local economic ecosystem through partnerships, growth, readiness, supports, and COVID-19 recovery initiatives. An example of this is providing funding opportunities to support those small businesses. Increased housing options. This action focuses on identifying tangible ways that the city can create innovative supports for attainable and affordable housing. An example of this is the development of a housing affordability strategy. Encourage safe and healthy neighborhoods. This action focuses on addressing safety concerns through neighborhood-level initiatives, such as traffic safety. The next is improve access to social supports. This action focuses on partnerships, opportunities to provide support outside of the city's mandate, and supporting our most vulnerable populations. An example of this is some of the social support mapping that we're currently doing to help our residents to actually navigate the services that they need. Take action to combat climate change. This action focuses on initiatives that enable the city to meet the existing commitments and targets. This includes maintaining innovative, proactive asset management practices, promoting and expecting green development, and a demonstration of the city's commitment to address climate change. Prepare for emergency prevention and recovery. This action focuses on initiatives that ensure the city is ready to respond to emergency situations and maintain business continuity. So we saw the importance of this particular action throughout the course of the pandemic. And finally, promote and develop more transportation options. This action focuses on initiatives that increase transportation options, including preparing for the LRT and related development, enhancing and connecting multi-use trails and other active transportation. Next slide, please. So there's a lot going on this slide, but we wanted to share it with you because we think it helps to demonstrate that alignment. So we've talked about the core components separately, but this slide helps to bring them together and show you how they're aligned to one another. So you'll see the goals at the top. So again, people, place, and prosperity. Our objectives are how we'll achieve the goals, and they're in blue. And then this shows you how our strategic actions are aligned to those objectives. So the interesting thing about a lot of our strategic actions is that although they're connected primarily to one objective, they actually, some of them help to deliver other objectives or advance other objectives as well, which is an attribute of a strong plan. For example, create and activate spaces, shown above, also contributes to the objectives of well-being, inclusion, placemaking, green spaces, and strong cores. and also, of course, the vibrant neighborhoods that it's connected to. Next slide, please. So again, there's a lot on this slide, and hopefully you have a paper copy of this document in front of you. This is our 2023 budget highlights. So this is just a snapshot of some of the key strategic initiatives that we're doing to action each of our strategic actions to bring them into life and to make progress. And outside of these particular actions, we also have core services, of course, that we deliver to our community that provide the service they need. Next slide, please. So, and the next one, please. Thank you. So that covers some of the core components of our plan. In terms of next steps, as Cheryl mentioned earlier, Council will receive a staff report in Q2, which will include a summary of the performance that we've achieved to date, also a recommended approach for the next strategic plan update, which will include a summary of proposed council engagements. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to take any questions that you have.
So I'm going to open it up. Thank you so much for your presentation. I'm going to open it up for questions from the floor. Sherry?
Yes, thank you. Mayor Jan, for you. Thank you for your presentation. Can you answer the question of who were the other, you said that 1,500 were residents. Who were the other respondents with that?
So they are primarily, they will be staff. They will be, I know there was engagement done with our advisory committees. Also, they would be some of our community partners.
Okay, perfect. And follow-up question. I didn't notice anywhere in the strategic plan where you reference, where staff is referenced at all in terms of sort of the climate in the municipality or anything like that. Is that something that we could look at for our future planning to ensure that they are included in our planning that we're doing to make sure that they're properly supported and all the things they need to do their job well so that they can therefore push the strategic plan forward?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Liggett. Yes, absolutely. We can include others and talk about how we might do that engagement in the future.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Kimson.
Thank you, Mayor Jan, through you. Thank you very much for your presentation. I'm not really sure if this is an appropriate time to bring this up or just some feedback on our existing plan. But when we look at people, under the category of people, we have vibrant neighborhoods listed. Why is that there and not in the next category of place, where we have placemaking, planning for growth in green spaces? Because in a way, I think of a neighborhood as a place, like an area, not necessarily sort of like people. And I just wasn't sure if that was something we might consider.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Liggett. Thanks so much for that question. So I know, as I mentioned before, there are many strategic actions that not only help to achieve the objective that they're most closely aligned to, but some of the other objectives as well. And I think with that one specifically, it's really about the impact to the people that live in those neighborhoods. And so I think just from my understanding, that's why it's there. But again, many of our actions help to achieve multiple objectives, and they do fit in several categories.
Thank you.
Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor Liggett, and through you. Thanks very much for your presentation. I was just wondering if maybe I missed it, but where different age groups might fit in, like youth and seniors. I know initiatives like becoming an age-friendly city are mentioned, but I didn't notice them under any specific strategic actions. So are there strategic actions for them, or are they just kind of implemented under subcategories through different initiatives?
Yeah, so we do, through you, Mayor Liggett. Thank you for the question. So providing age-friendly services that are accessible to all is probably the strategic action that most closely aligns with what you're speaking to. And so that again is really, that's where we spoke about the age-friendly designation, and that's really providing support to our community, not only for different age ranges, so children, youth, of course, our focus on being a senior-friendly community, but also to support equity deserving groups and other individuals. So that's probably the closest aligned strategic action.
Great. Thank you.
Councillor Earnshaw.
Thank you, Mayor Leggett, and through you, thank you for your presentation. I'll join the chorus. I'm interested in the process of developing the next strategic plan. And in particular, I'm wondering if this is a staff-driven or whether there's an external consultant. And I might as well ask the second question now. And you mentioned to be a role for councillors. Could you just elaborate a little bit on what we might expect to be required to do? Thanks.
Through you, Mayor Liggett. Yeah, thank you for your question. There will be an opportunity on April 25th. We're going to bring a staff report with a recommended update approach where we'll outline some of the engagement that we expect to have, what role we'll expect council to play, and how you can be involved. So there is more information coming on that particular front.
And consultant?
Yes, so we do have a budget. We have, again, it will be shared through the recommended approach. We do want to engage a consultant, but only for key items, and that will be our recommendation. So not to build and oversee the development of the plan necessarily, but we want to be very fiscally responsible with the budget that we have and engage a consultant for the key pieces where we think we need that expertise and oversight.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Kimpson.
You, Mayor Jan, had another question. I have a lot of questions. We talk about the core areas a lot in Cambridge, and I think that is because we have a very unique area where we have distinct core areas as opposed to just one downtown per se compared to other communities. But I'm wondering if you've had any, I don't know, any research done or any surveys with the community on whether or not they understand what a core area actually is, or if that's just sort of some of the lingo that we know and we're aware of. So just sort of wondering about that, especially as we have more people coming into our community who don't understand the Preston, Hespeler, Galton, Blair and why we have multiple areas. I just wanted to put that out there to see if that was something that you might be aware of or maybe look into.
Through you, Mayor Liggett. Yeah, thanks very much for that question. So I know from our most recent community satisfaction survey that wasn't something that we asked about, but it is a really good observation because of course it is, our community is very unique in comparison to others. So we do have that nuance. I think a large part of what we've talked about already, regardless of the approach that we take with our next strategic plan, is really making sure that we provide that education to our community and that we focus on sharing those key messages, not only about our progress, but about some of the commonalities. So we're all speaking the same language. So I do appreciate that there may be a need to kind of define some of these things to help create that core or shared understanding of what we mean by things like core services. So thank you. We will take that into consideration.
Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Mayor Jan, through you. Just another question. So I noticed a lot of language around equity and inclusion efforts. And so in our efforts to increase equity and increase the voices that are being captured through this plan, will you be collaborating or consulting with our advisory committees? Do they get a chance to have a look at and make some comments on the plan?
Through you, Mayor Liggett. Yes, thanks so much for that question. So we do actually have a time set up with them already. So once we have an endorsed plan from council, we will go to some of our advisory committees and share that. And we definitely will build that into our plan. That was a key component of our last plan. So something that we will and have already considered for this update. Thank you.
Councillor Hamilton?
Thank you, Mayor Liggett. Through you. This might be completed after the 50th celebrations or around the same time, but I was just wondering how this intersected with the 50th anniversary, because it seems like a lot of these initiatives are present in that. Is there any overlap or conversations between the strategic plan and the 50th, or are they just kind of singing from the same hymn book, but not quite to each other?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, hold on.
Through you, Mayor Liggett. Thanks so much. That's a really good observation. So I myself sit on the 50th committee steering committee, so I think that will help. It really just depends what approach council endorses. So if there's an opportunity to go out and engage collaboratively, just as an example, then there could be opportunities to take advantage of some of those celebrations that are already planned or some of those events that we know are happening within the community. It's definitely an opportunity to increase pride of place as we talk about the pride that we have in developing our new plan. I think it's really important to leverage kind of that excitement that we have going on with the community currently and all of the celebrations that will be taking forth for the remainder of the year.
Right, thank you.
Councillor Devine?
Yes, thank you for your presentation. A couple questions. You've done a great job.
Thank you.
If you go to page 15, bottom right-hand rectangle. Promote and develop more transportation options. Now, when you say transportation options, I think of the bus service and I think of the rail, which is a regional responsibility. They get a good chunk of our tax dollars. Okay, and there's a couple others here that look to me like they might be regional responsibility. Can you explain that to me, that particular block, please?
Through you, Mayor Liggett. So this is really about creating alternative transportation. So some of the methods that you mentioned, the LRT, we've also done some work with electronic scooters in the last few years. So this is really about encouraging people to take other methods of transportation other than just cars. And so there's a few different things involved in that. And of course, it is under the collaborate bucket because as you mentioned, the region has ultimate responsibility and we do play a partnership or a collaborative role with that particular action. And so this is also the other thing is trails as well. So we've done a lot of use with a lot of work with multi-use trails and other things that we're doing to encourage people to get out and be active and choose other forms of transportation.
Okay, so this really is more active transportation then.
Yeah, like alternatives to having all those cars or vehicles on the road is the primary objective.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Reid?
Thank you, Mayor Liggett, through you too, and thank you for your presentation. I'm just wondering how boards that we have can be involved in this, such as the library board and our BIA boards.
Through you, Mayor Liggett. Thanks so much. It's absolutely, we'll consider all of our stakeholders as we plan. So when we talk about community partners, we kind of lump those groups in. And we will definitely consider them as part of our plan. I met recently with the CEO of the Idea Exchange, and so just to share some information about our current plan as well with her and get to know her a little bit better. And so we'll continue to build those relationships and identify with council how we're going to engage those stakeholders in the development of our plan.
Thank you.
Councillor Armetta?
Well, thank you, Mary Jan. My question or comment has to do with more housing options, and it's great that we're doing some work on the affordability front, which I believe is very important, and we need to keep up that momentum, but also the types of housing as well. I get a number of people asking me where they can get a bungalow built in Cambridge because there's just not enough bungalows being built. At least that's a perspective that they have to look at Tillsonburg or wherever to get one. So what kind of steps can we take to get more of a variety of housing? Like when the plans come in, when the builders bring their plans in, could we ask if they could do a few bungalow plans, for example, or what steps can we do to get more of a variety of housing? And that could just be a general comment. I don't necessarily need an answer, but it's something that's
Councillor
coming up a
Ahmeda,
lot.
that's not what tonight's is about, and we can't look at the next strategic plan. We're only talking about the current strategic plan, and it's an education for this council to understand how a strategic plan is built, because when you move away from that, you're straying into an area of closed door meetings,
Okay.
which shouldn't be. So
It was just a comment when I saw increased housing options. I know I'll leave it at that, all right?
okay, thank you. It's hard to figure out where we're going here tonight, but I just thought you were straying a little bit, and I don't think that she's able to answer your question at this point anyway. Thanks, though. Any more questions on how the system works, or how the strategic plan is applied? How you would give input, what type of input? I think it's important that council understands that you do have input into this, because it's a policy that's going to be created by you. Well, you're going to approve the policy, but okay, Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor Liggett, and through you. And that was a good prompt, because Councillor Roberts and I were actually discussing this when we sat down. We said the city has so many intricate, very precise directions and motions that come to council every month. And yet this seems more kind of philosophical. It's a broader, more general approach. So how do the two meet? How do we get from the strategic plan down to the incredibly complex motions that we see at normal council?
Through you, Mayor Liggett. Thanks. That's a great question. And I think it kind of goes back to the slide that we shared that showed that busy slide with the alignment pieces. So how all of it fits together. So it really is, again, overarching our strategies at higher level objective, and then some of the work that we do every day through the business planning process and through the motions that you see during your meetings are how we're actually going to achieve those things. And so hopefully that slide helps to illustrate for you how the high level comes down to support the work that we do every day, and how our decisions and the things that we choose to approve are based on our ultimate broader and longer range strategy. So really important to consider as we're making those business decisions and prioritizing the work that we do.
Thank you.
Councillor Kimpson.
Thank you, Mayor Jan, and through you. When we look at the strategic actions and how we have the first page where it's sort of laid out as lead, ones that specifically the city is taking the lead on and sort of in charge of, versus collaborate, where we may work with other groups, agencies, and or the region. I'm wondering if when we look towards the next plan, if there's going to be a way that we can sort of be very clear as to what is our responsibility as well as what is a regional responsibility, because there have been some areas that we've discussed here in council since I've been elected where some of those lines get quite murky. And I just, when I look at improving access to social support, so many social services fall under the regional level, talk about housing as well. And if it's, housing that's being built is one thing, housing options, supportive housing, like it starts to get murky. So just wondering if perhaps we can look at building in maybe some crisper lines to help us. And that might be sort of the philosophical to the policy level that we have to make that jump to somehow.
Through you, Mayor Liggett. Yeah, thanks for that question. And we have had some conversation already about that. So again, it kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier about those communication pieces and those opportunities to really help our communities to understand what we have jurisdiction over and where we don't have as much, where we're that collaborative partner who comes in to help with what we can. So I think there is a really good opportunity, and some of us have had those conversations already to make make sure that the community understands the roles and responsibilities of each and what we're able to achieve. And then I think real concrete examples of how we're advancing that work, whether it's something that we lead or something that we collaborate on. So I think there's an opportunity to build, again, education, potentially some toolkits, even for council that you can have when you go to have those conversations and things that will help the community to understand, because that's a big, complex message sometimes to deliver. So I think we can help to kind of streamline that and provide some tools that might help with those conversations.
Thank you. That would be great.
Councillor Cooper?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Liggett. Thank you for your presentation again. I just believe there's something missing here. On 13 and 14 here, we've got these boxes here that state we've got encourage safe and healthy neighborhoods. That's great. And then we also have establish our core areas as attractive destinations. What I'd like to see is those overlapped a little bit, where we're encouraging safe and healthy neighborhoods. I believe we also need to establish safe and healthy, and I'm emphasizing safe, the core areas. We've got that for the neighborhoods, not for the core. I would like to see that.
Through you, Mayor Liggett. So in our next, as a next step, we will be reaching out to council to ask for some input like that. So in terms of some suggestions and information that you can provide to help inform the next workshop that we will have. So there will be an opportunity to provide feedback like that as a next step.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Devine?
Yes, thank you, through the chair. You've done a good job. There's something that I think we need to be cognizant of here. We talk about the city, we talk about the region, we talk about our partners. We have a partner that we probably don't utilize as much as maybe we should, and I'm just throwing this out here. And that's the Grand River Conservation. Okay, they could possibly play an integral role as well. Thank you.
Councillor Kimpson?
Thank you, Mayor Jan. What is our timeline for having this sort of done and wrapped up per se? I don't know if I missed that or if that was discussed.
Through you, Mayor Liggett. So it really depends. I mean, right now, we do hope to have it approved by council in January of 2023, but it is going to be dependent upon our next conversation and really the discussion of scope. So when you receive our proposed recommendations for update, then we'll have to take another look at those timelines.
Follow up? Would there maybe be an opportunity for some of us to meet within our wards and share some of the work that's being done towards this with our constituents in sort of like a public information consultation if it gets to a point, just to try and get more community feedback? Don't know if time would allow for that or not.
Through you, Mayor Liggett. Yeah, we can discuss that at our next opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask the clerk to speak to that.
She's putting me in the hot seat. I think what you may be looking for is maybe use of something like the engagement model that we're working on currently. So this is community action lab type of model. And I know we've reached out to Cheryl and her team to talk about how we could incorporate that into whatever engagement they're doing. So that's something we'll definitely look towards doing.
More questions? You're doing well. None? Okay. Okay, thank you for your presentation and the answers that you've been able to give so far at this point. I want to thank you and consultants here. Is that who? No? Okay. So we'll move forward with the motion to receive correspondence and presentations. Councillor Devine, you have the motion.
Motion to receive and file, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Meta. Recommendation that all presentations and correspondence from April 3rd, 2023 council workshop be received. I so move.
Any questions or comments from council? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk to call for the vote.
Opening voting. And closing voting. And that carries unanimously.
And now I will call for the close of the meeting. Councillor Roberts, you have that motion. Could you please read it?
Thank you, Mayor Jan. The recommendation is moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Cooper, that the council meeting does now adjourn at 5:47 PM.
Thank you, and I will ask the clerk to call for the vote.
And opening voting. And closing voting. And that carries unanimously.
Thank you, everyone. I hope it was a little bit clearer to you, and if you have any further questions, please reach out to them and they'll be happy to answer them for you. It's a very important document.